Hi, everybody. Can you hear us now? All right, so I want to dive in and I want to go, first I want to bring you to, let's see, it was a cold May 6th, 1954. Some of you already know what I'm talking about, but there was about 3,000 people there, and there was one person that was about to do what was considered totally impossible until then. And I'm going to see if I can shift so I can see everybody. Where is that? All right. So how many of you know what happened on May 6, 1954? Any of you? Somebody was about to do the impossible. His name was Roger Bannister. What did Roger Bannister do? Somebody know? Nobody knows? It was called, oh my God, Scott left already. That's what, there's somebody you know. He ran the 4-minute mile. So up until that point, it was considered what? Impossible. And then one person ran the 4-minute mile. And where did the 4-minute mile actually happen? Was it on the track or in his head? It originally happened in his head. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight, though, is relationships happening by design or by default. And where do relationships actually start? They start in our head. And we have, I mean, everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people before Roger wanted to run the 4-minute mile. But in their head, they were telling them there was no friggin' way. So where did the 4-minute mile originally get run? It got ran in his head. Where does the relationship or your dreams start? It starts in your head. So we're going to dive into your head tonight and look at what it takes to move from relationships by default to relationships by design. So I want to introduce my co-partner and my relationship by design expert. Sequoia, what do you want to say, darling?
I'm just happy to be here. And so you all know I'm making sure that the chat is followed. So if you have any problems or any questions, please make sure you mention it on chat and I will be following that.
Cool, and it will be interactive as we go to it. And we're going to use some terminology that we don't normally use, which is how do things occur to you? And if they occur as impossible, then how are you going to behave? You're going to behave as if they're impossible. If they occur as possible, you're going to behave as if they're possible. And they're in the same world. The world that Roger Bannister was in the same world of everybody else who couldn't run the 4-minute mile, that were as trained as him. And what happened as soon as he ran the 4-minute mile, I think it was within the same week what happened. All of history, nobody had run a 4-minute mile. He runs it, and I think it's in the same week, 2 or 3 other people ran the 4-minute mile. Why? Because the 4-minute mile occurred differently. And now we've got it down to 3 minutes, and I think it's 47 seconds, which may not sound like a big difference, but it's a huge difference even from a 4-minute mile. Why? Because it's occurring differently for people. So relationships occur in our mind and then they show up here. So the language that's going on here allows me either to see possibility or to see limitation. So we'll look at how does your relationship occur to you? How does your partner occur to you? And lastly, how do you occur to yourself in the relationship? So what I want to do is I want to hear from some people. What are you getting from just even this opening salvo? What came up for you? Okay, Lusana, let's see if, can you unmute yourself or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you mean by occur. Do you mean occur in my mind, what occurs to me as I think about it, or what happens in the physical interrelationship?
So thank you for that question. It's how it occurs in our mind often is how it shows up out there. So if we believe that the 4-minute mile is possible in our mind, then we're going to take action to make it a reality, but it occurs first in our own mind. And this is stuff that I got from listening to a great book called The 3 Laws of Performance, dun, 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 which you can get on Amazon and stuff. And a lot of this, how many of you have been through any landmark trainings? Any of you? The forums, stuff like that? Yeah. Krishna, you've been through. Okay. This right here is from some of their top trainers. It's an amazing, amazing book that I highly recommend because it will shift the way relationships occur to you. And so the training the other day that Scott was showing us all, which is how do you move from here to here? And what I was thinking about is what causes us to be here? So that was the question. So it is, I really agree with him. It's great to move from here to here. What I want to do is I want to figure out why the hell people are over here. Why am I over here? I'm over here because this occurs to me as the best thing I can do at the time.
So, may I say something?
Yeah.
Great. So Lusana and everybody, obviously this is for everyone, your question was fantastic. And the distinction that we're bringing to the table in regards to the way my relationship occurs to me, if, you know, being in your head is really what we're trying to get out of, right? But it's like a set of glasses. My world without these glasses, you guys are all blurry. It actually occurs to me like the world is a blurry place and it's actually going to be a problem if I want to read anything. When I put these glasses on, all of a sudden the world occurs totally in focus, right? But if I then put on sunglasses inside, you guys all occur to me like really in the dark. So you can think of when we're talking about the way something occurs is the filters that we actually see our relationship through or hear our partner through. Does that help? Awesome. Does that help everybody else? Awesome.
Damn, that was brilliant. Any other questions that my very smart partner can? Yeah, twinkler there. Any other questions before we? So I want to give you a different map, a different way of looking at that same thing, because I'm guessing that the only reason that people would get, join Scott and Emily and do relationship mastery is because they want one thing. And I'm going to make an overall statement. You all want the exact same thing. You want to change some results you're getting in your relationship. You want something to start that isn't, you want something to happen that isn't happening, and you want something to stop that's happening that you don't like. So agreed? Yes? Okay. So what causes the results that we get in our life is the actions we take or we don't take. If we head west thinking we're going to get to New York now, I'm living in California right now, so heading west thinking I'm going to get to New York, it's the wrong action to produce that result. So your actions, though, control your results. What controls the actions you take? And this is a critical one right here. So type it in, what controls the actions you take or don't take on a consistent basis? And there's a hint, it starts with B. Dun, dun, dun. Anybody get it? Somebody does. It's
beliefs.
Yeah, it's your beliefs. So your beliefs control your actions control your results. What controls your beliefs? And if you guessed, because there's an arrow from it, it's your past results. So this ends up, your beliefs is another way of saying how do things occur for you. Your beliefs are not what's real. Your beliefs are a filter that you hope is close to reality. Are your beliefs changeable? So how many of you believed like in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or any of those? Those, you might have really believed them. And I left a tooth under my pillow the other night. I didn't get nothing, man. It cost me a couple of grand. I'm getting it worked on right now. Anyway, that's my humor for the day. So what happens, though, is this cycle right here ends up being relationships by default. Because your past results control your beliefs control your actions control your results. So you end up in this cycle that you want something new, but you behave out of the past. And I don't see Sequoia, I see all my past relationships where I didn't get what I wanted, or I was made wrong, or all the rest of that. So my relationship shows up as my past impossible shit, and then I landed this new person in that spot, but my belief is women will never give me what I want. I'm too much. It's never going to work. But I want it. I mean, I'm still putting on a good show. I'm in the game. But underneath it, what do I believe? It's not possible. It's not going to work. So my beliefs control my actions. This is what we call our relationship operating system. So you want to say anything about that?
No, I'm good. I think you did really good, babe.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you one more chunk, and then I want to hear from people. What are they getting from this? Because this is going to be an interactive one. So if we just come from our past and do our creating our beliefs and action, we end up in this cycle. How do we get out of the cycle? How do we go from, this is like our default cycle. If we don't change it, it's what's going to happen. So like the computers that we're all using right now, unless you get a different operating system on that computer, it's going to, the operating system that's on it right now is the one that's going to die with. And most people don't even know that the operating system is there. It's invisible. There's this expression that says, we don't know who discovered water, but we're pretty sure it wasn't fish. Why wasn't it fish? Because fish are immersed in it and don't even see it. It took thousands of years for the human beings, probably more, for us to discover oxygen. And how oxygen's around us all the time, but we don't see it. So our beliefs are around us all the time. Relationships, I don't think that she's occurring to me in a certain way. That's reality. That's who she is. But it's not. It's my filter. Does that make sense? This is really powerful. And if you never figure out what your filter is, everybody you see through your glasses. So this part right here, this V is for the vision. And what has to happen is you have to clear up the past and create a vision of possibility that's stronger than your history. And we're going to get into doing that in a minute. So what I want to do is hear from anybody. What are you getting? What questions do you have on what we've covered so far? Okay, so Lusana first, and then Krishna second.
Thanks. Going back, in the default cycle, the past results determine the beliefs. So you're talking also about habitual thinking, is that correct? So the unconscious habitual, call it programming, that's included in the past results? Because I guess my question is, like, sometimes the results are a little different, and that might not change the belief if the programming is really strong. So anyway, I'd like some more clarity about that, please.
Okay, you want to say it? Or?
No.
Okay, so we might have been a little kid in our crib, and we cried, and our parents thought that, well, there's two lines of thinking with parents. One is hold them and nurture them and have them have healthy attachment. The other one is let them cry it out, because they're never going to get tough unless they learn how to self-source as a baby. So as a baby, you might have cried it out if you had parents that said that, and you ended up with a belief that my needs don't matter, and I have to fight for them. And so that's how you behave. And then you get in relationships and you act that way. You act selfish. And then your partner doesn't want to give to you. And you end up saying, that's true. I have to fight to get my needs met. And that reinforces that belief. And it ends up reinforcing itself. We're rarely conscious of it unless we do an exercise. But if you think about it, right now, if you went relationships are, and then you filled in the blank, relationships are dangerous. Relationships, you're going to be betrayed. Relationships are nurturing. And we have like these beliefs that all come, that are under the surface, but are driving the car or the ship or your relationship. And the thing is to find a way to uncover the underlying system. And the symptom is we end up in upset, in frustration. We end up battling with each other. We end up in a cycle where we keep getting in and out of relationships. Or we say we want a relationship and we don't attract anybody because part of us is unconsciously saying no. We were working with someone today who had that exact programming. Part of him said, yes, I want this. But he came from a culture where he wanted freedom to choose his spouse, and he came from a culture where they choose your spouse for you. And so he didn't want to be disrespectful to his past, and he also wanted to have choice. So he was stuck, and so he's basically single. Because his beliefs were battling with each other. Did you have another question, Lusana?
No, I understand what you've said. I understand that.
Okay.
I wasn't apparently clear with my question, so I'm gonna just let it sit because I get that triangle. I get the cycle of repetitive habitual beliefs and how they create our experience, and that's what we attract into our lives. So I apparently wasn't clear with my question, so I'm gonna just let it sit.
Do you want to phrase it another way?
I think maybe it's a question of when the past results are different from our underlying beliefs. To me, that's where that statement that the past results continue the beliefs doesn't jive for me, and that's what I was wanting to explore to try to understand better.
Okay, so your past results can be a minute ago. So you get in a relationship. I talked to somebody recently. They were a virgin and they got raped, and they ended up marrying the guy who raped them. Because in her culture, it wasn't okay to give away your virginity or take it. So she ended up, that was the way it made sense. But see, the thing is, before that, a minute ago, before that happened, she trusted men. A minute later, that event happened, boom. And then what's her belief about men? All of a sudden, it was changed because of one event can change your belief. So that's a result that changes her belief. And it's taken her 30 years to try to adjust and come back to a belief that actually serves her because she doesn't want to be vulnerable around men. So did that kind of answer that? All right, yeah, you're muted now, but I got it. Okay.
And
it helps, thank you.
And I'd also like to say that that beliefs are a way to describe what's going on in an occurring world, but it's not everything. Is that clear? Like we're talking.
Say more, please.
Yeah, so we're talking about the way something occurs to an individual. It's got to do with beliefs. It's got to do with experiences. It's got to do with past wounds. It's got to do with everything that would be in the kit and caboodle of what we call past. Our occurring world is not just beliefs. right? So we're saying the distinction occurring is actually one for all of us to kind of just like sit in the water of, like, okay, the way my house right now occurs to me, because I was gone for the weekend and my teenager was here without any supervision, is my house is a mess and it's driving me nuts. But usually the way my house actually occurs to me is like my oasis. I love it. I love my ocean and everything, right? So the occurring is really something to just try on. We're asking you to kind of consider that if you get aware of how someone occurs to you, you're going to see that it decides, the occurring decides how you're going to treat them, how you're going to listen to them, how you're going to talk to them, how you're going to stay away from them or go closer to them, whether or not you're going to interact with them at all, right? So occurring is a really great distinction, and we're going to go into different ways of utilizing it.
So if she occurs to me as resistant, how am I going to interact with her? And how is she going to appear to me? And we're going to get into what's the relationship of your dreams, the impossible one that you really want, and what's in the way of you actually having that. Because if you think about it, what was impossible not that long ago? I now have this silly little device here that I could literally call somebody anywhere around the world and talk on their phone with them. And I can also, it's got a clock, it's got a, that's not that impressive, but it's got the internet, it's got, photos.
Things just magically download from somewhere, space.
They're there all along.
The cloud. We didn't have such a thing as called the cloud until somebody said, it occurs like a cloud, let's name it the cloud.
So I want to bounce to Krishna before we go on to the next thing, and I want to hear from anybody else also. So this is the model, what we're trying to look at, and where the power is. Most people think it's here or here, but really the power is here in clearing out the beliefs and making sure that your beliefs actually support you rather than get in your way. And if you look at their global beliefs, men are, women are, relationships are, being vulnerable is either a good thing or a bad thing. So, Krishna, what was your comment or question?
So my comment was my beliefs on how I see a certain person will impact on all my actions to them and around them and all my conversations with them.
Yeah. And what will happen is your beliefs will act like a filter, and anything unlike your beliefs, like if you think this is what prejudice is, prejudging somebody, blacks are, whites are, and then anything unlike what we believe they are just goes right on by. There's a black guy being really nice. Well, they're not nice, so I can't see that. There's a white guy being a total asshole. Well, that's okay, because, I don't see that either, because whites are nice. So we have all these prejudgments. That's what prejudice is. But we think about it only with race, creed, sexual preference. But we prejudge our partner because women are, men are, relationships are. So thank you, Krishna. Anything else?
That was the biggie for me. How I see that person, but how I see myself, how I see the wounding I have received in the past.
Yeah.
And if I turn up unresourced, if I have a belief that makes me unresourced, for example, if I'm overwhelmed, then I will take a shortcut on how I see the other person based on my existing view of them.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Krishna.
This person is always blah because
yes.
I'm underwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed.
Right. So one of the most important...
And if I'm overwhelmed and they are overwhelmed, and we're mirroring each other in overwhelm, then my global beliefs as to what she is like and my global beliefs as to what else is going on means I have to shortcut this, and then I'm seen as controlling.
Brilliant. So what you're bringing to the conversation is really important, because we actually need to understand how we occur to ourselves so that we can actually forgive ourselves for a lot of the things that have happened in our past, right? But also so that we can know when we're following a pattern of triggers or behaviors with our partner, this is a way for us to get responsible and accountable for our way of interacting with them, right? So first you need to kind of get, oh, I occur to myself as someone who is too much for people. So I'm kind of, walking on eggshells when I want to talk to, Paul about something that I'm really convinced that I'm going to overwhelm him with, right? But if I understand that I am just feeling that way, that's the first step in actually creating a new way of being in the situation. And then we actually need to be able to see how they occur to us so that we get that filter also. Because there's a filter that we listen to ourselves on, and there's a filter that we listen to others with.
And we often get it when we're coaching couples. They have how my partner occurs to me. Like oftentimes one or the other partner will show up and say, we want relationship coaching, but my partner, they would never go for it. Or they would, and that's how they kind of approach it. You wouldn't want to do this. And so that's how they occur. And unless we help change the way that their partner occurs, it pretty much is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So let me dive into the next part. Where is, do you have the
Which one, sweetie?
denial, labeling, justify? You want to talk about emotional alimony?
Emotional alimony. Okay, so we have a term that we use called emotional alimony in our program. And what emotional alimony is when you have past relationships that you have wounds around that you are not complete on. And what I mean by that is you haven't cleaned it up with the person, that there's still something that you're like out of integrity about, or you can't express yourself in this area. There's something that upsets you around this area. If you haven't cleaned it up, or in other words, put the past in the past where it belongs, then you are literally leaking or paying energy to that past relationship. Even if you're in a new relationship, I'm not wholly here giving all of my energy to my new relationship, because some of my energy is still being paid to the other relationships that are incomplete. That's a very important term to me. They're incomplete. They're like a wound that is still festering, that I'm actually still spending energy trying to heal.
And that reduces what we got this other term that we use called bioavailability. That's in vitamins, how much of the vitamin you can absorb is the bioavailability. Sometimes it's only 5%, and 95% of the vitamins get pooped out. What, we got a birthday cake there? Yay, cool. The other, in relationships, so rather than bioavailability, we have relationship availability. Some people are like 50% available, some people 5% available. So you're in a relationship with them. Like we go out to dinner and we look and there's a couple sitting there and they're both sitting right next to each other, almost looking at each other, but they're both on their cell phones typing away. How available are they to each other? They're like maybe 5%. So how we occur to ourselves is part of what happens here. Our old wounds, if I occur in this current relationship as wounded, then what happens is I'm not that available to her, and what's mainly available is the past. That make sense?
Oh, that makes sense to me. Does everybody, it make sense to everybody else?
So I'm going to go through one other concept, and then I'm going to hear from you guys. So when I ask you about creating the relationship of your dreams, what happens for you? For some people, they go, well, I don't even want that. Like, I don't even want a relationship. They're in basically denial. I don't want a relationship. I'm fine just the way I am. Or I want the relationship of my dreams, but I'm with this person, so that's not possible. Whoops. I should have gone this way. It's a lot safer. I'm with this person, so it's not possible. So what happens is we start here in denial, and you look at this model works in a lot of different ways. But this is how the brain works. We start in denial, then what do? Well, the reason I don't want a relationship because those past relationships, I blame my parents because they had a screwed up relationship. I blame other people. Then I justify. And when justification doesn't work, I move all the way up to what? I feel shame. Like the reason I don't have the relationship with my dreams is something's wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm damaged goods. I am. And after I go through shame, what's the next step up is I just want to quit. I was at one point filling out an application at FEMA. My place had been flooded when Colorado got flooded. I was one of the people right on the river. And I was filling out something at the FEMA, and the woman said, what do you do? I said, I'm a relationship coach. And she started laughing like uncontrollably. It felt like for 5 minutes. It was just like the most awkward thing I'd ever, like, what did I say? I'm looking around. She couldn't stop. Turns out she hadn't been in a relationship for 25 years because she had her heart broken so severely. What did she do? She quit. And there's two types of quit. There's quit and leave. She quit and leave. The other one is quit and stay. That's where you're not really, you're in a relationship technically, but you're not, nobody's home. You're not committed to making a difference on a daily basis with your partner. Like we try to figure out on a daily basis, how can we meet each other's needs and how can we make something special happen for our partner on a regular basis? So right above quit is when you become responsible, and responsible partly for how life occurs to you and how your relationship occurs to you.
And to add to that, which makes I just get goosebumps about this. Can you imagine a relationship where you are paying attention to how this person occurs to you and your partner's doing the same thing? When you're responsible for the occurring world of each, then you literally can set those occurring worlds if they're getting in arguments, and the two of you can kind of be like, oh, look at that. Look at that. Our occurring worlds are having an argument. Or what happened to the sheet, sweetie? Can you pick that up for me, please? Thank you. Or, oh, look at that. Our occurring worlds are over here. Who we really are is here, right? How do we get our occurring worlds to go over here? Well, then we actually can have a conversation about that, because we're actually able to separate ourselves from the disagreement, which is really a disagreement of occurrings. Is that did you understand what
I made up a story, I did. See, here's the odd thing about this wonderful list that they put together. This is actually not the adjustment. This is what should be the normal state. This is a misadjustment. Like, this is how we are. Almost, you look at little kids, most little kids are over here. They're about inclusion and play, and not everyone, they're not all born angels. I know this. but we tend to start over here and we get misadjusted over here. And then it's the journey home. This is home over here. This is our natural but not normal state, because we're in a culture that tends to try to move us over here.
Yeah, it's actually really great. So we had the privilege on Saturday night to go to, in Santa Cruz, Marianne Williamson was speaking, and we had a beautiful experience. If you haven't seen her talk, if she's in your area, definitely go see her. She's fantastic, and she was on fire on Saturday night. And after she had her talk, which brilliant, she then asked people to come up and ask questions or say something to her. And there were a couple of people who went up that were complaining about people in their life that they have relationships with. And she was so great. She would tell everybody, like, okay, I get that you're wanting to get all 300 of us to agree with you that you're the victim of this situation, but she brought people back to a place where they got that this is actually our authentic state, that we are whole, complete human beings, and this is actually the state that we start out in and we venture from it. And so bringing us back to our original state is part of some of most of her work, including the work that I think that she talks about most, which is not hers, but Course in Miracles. And what I love about Course in Miracles, I'm a total book fanatic, so I always have a pile of books that I reference and everything. So Course in Miracles is reminding all of us that our pure state is the green side, right?
Yeah. And, okay, this is my book, The Argue Less, Love More. I was lucky enough, I got to give her a copy of it and signed it, and she announced it from the stage, and the little kid in me was really happy. And then we got to talk to her later, and we have a picture of her with my book and me with her book. So it was very cool.
And it was really brilliant how she brought people back around, because anybody who gets up on mics and they complain about something, she did it with such grace, such beauty, and she was responsible for the listening in the room or the occurring in the room. She was really responsible for making sure that everybody got that our natural state is for health. Sickness is actually unnatural, right? What was the way she said it?
Health is not the absence of sickness. Sickness is the absence of health.
It was brilliant. And that just speaks to the fact that we are actually whole and complete, and the way we occur to ourselves. Like before I actually, back in my 20s, I used to consider myself damaged goods. Literally, I used to think that there was something wrong with me over here, and I would never have a relationship. And when I healed that was when I really got and started occurring to myself that I'm actually perfect just the way I am, with all the injuries that I've had, the concussions that I have. My brain doesn't completely work the way I think it should based on the way school occurred to me.
So what I want to do is just here, we're going to dive into a little bit and find out how your relationships occur to you in a second, but I want to hear any thoughts, comments on this. And by the way, I would put this up on the refrigerator in your house, and like when there starts to be an upset, you just get it out and you kind of look at going, oh, where are we occurring right now? Are we down here in denial, lay blame, justify, shame, quit? Or are we being responsible? Because this is all about the future. And by the way, some people get really fancy with this. They think responsibility equals laying blame on themselves. No. Responsible is, how do we take whatever is happening and move it into the future to get what we want, to turn it into a productive, powerful thing, rather than going back. This is all about the past.
Being responsible can also be seen as being cause in the matter. being your own cause, not it's my fault that that bad thing happened, but oh, how could I actually create my life to go in a certain way? I just wanted to read some of the comments here. Rebecca and Doug, thank you for commenting. It says lucid coupling. I love it. And then Matthew, I found that it's better to quit when pursuing a woman because I'd rather not register as a sex offender just because I want to ask a woman out. That seems to be the world we live in. Interesting. Matt, are you actually, oh, there you are, Matt. Hi.
Hi.
Do you want to explain what your comment is?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
And
Okay.
before he starts, that comment was perfect for how the life occurs to him. And there are probably a lot of other people that it might occur very similarly. So go ahead, dive in, Matt.
Well, first I wanted to point out, or say, my initial point, which was the basis of what this is about, is that, and this is a thought I've had throughout these last several years since I've been in my 30s, is that, you know, me and probably all of us, and we've all heard since we were kids that they always say, you know, nothing is impossible. Then we grow up, we find out, well, there are some things that are impossible and that it ends up being worse if we try to, you know, make them possible, because there's also a thing that's called, you know, not meant to be. Does that resonate with anybody?
So I hear you, and what I want everybody to listen to as he's speaking is how his world occurs to him. And this is, you know, go for it.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much what basis of what I'm talking about. That you know, you there's something you want, but maybe it's not meant to be, and then you end up making things worse just because you want to. That's what you want, but maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe you weren't meant to be with that person or that you're pursuing.
So Matt, thank you so much for bringing out some of examples of occurring world, right? So what Paul and I would love for you to sit in and just feel. I'm not saying think, because I'm more of a, if you feel it with your body, you're going to get a lot more what I would call download or information, like knowing in the body, which is more grounded, right, than just the brain.
Yeah.
So just sit in, how is the world occurring to you that you would have those declarations? Because in my world, I actually have it much different. And my world occurs to me as, or I occur to myself as an optimist. So you can imagine that an optimist would actually have different statements to say than what you had said. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear.
Totally. So now can you imagine if you and I were in a conversation where we were actually talking about whether or not things are possible or not? Because from my occurring world, multiple things are, like, millions of things are possible, and I can always see other answers to questions that most people can't. So I'd love for you to kind of sit in contemplation to look at, how is my world occurring that I would say those statements?
So I want to thank you. I want to give an example from my own life. I grew up with a older brother that was sort of the James Dean. The women loved him. He was charismatic. He was a black belt in karate, a race car driver, all the rest of it. And I occurred to myself as sort of the dorky younger brother who never got the women and never got anything. And it's like, what's interesting to me is I look back at pictures of myself. I spent 18 years as a commercial fisherman in Alaska, and I actually was ripped. I was in such good shape, and I felt like an ugly duckling. So I occurred as that, and then I behaved as that. And what's happened to me is I've shifted how I occur to myself and how I present myself in the world. So things that seemed impossible to me back then are now possible for me. I'm with the woman that I love. our sex life is amazing. Our love life is amazing. Our communication, most of the time, is amazing. And when we get into it, we collide because we're both really strong personalities. And then we make whatever it is, we turn it into making it something better than it was before.
And the reason why we do that in our relationship, to kind of give you an understanding of our occurring world that provides that, when we first got together, we chose to create an occurring world of relationship as a laboratory for the work that we do with others. And that our relationship is beyond us. It's actually as a contribution to others through our work. And so any upset or any challenge that we go through, we actually do have it as like an experiment. Oh, well, what would work in this situation if this was our couples that we're coaching? And for that, it created an occurring world where it occurs to us as, ooh, that's interesting. What do you think we could do to actually clean this up or heal this past situation?
So what I want to do, Matt, is back up. Here, there's something in the book that they talk about. It's called your future. If things don't change.
Wait. Sorry. What happened?
Yeah, really bad reception. You're very slow. And I mean, you're not slow. Your voice sounds slow.
Oh,
Okay.
that's terrible.
Hold on, let me go into the techno world for a
See,
second.
now you're fine. Now you're fine.
Yeah, I just needed to get close and scare it, because that's what I do.
That was pretty trippy, actually.
We like to trip you all out.
Okay, I'm turning off the Wi-Fi, going straight to the hardwired in, Ethernet. How are we doing now? Okay.
Okay.
So I want to talk a tiny bit about default future, and I want to hear from some other people. So Matt, thank you. And I want you to try on, like, there's a place where people go, is that belief true? I need to test it. And I don't actually give a shit. What I care about is, if I have that belief, does it make my future better, richer, or does it make me smaller? So if you look at your belief, Matt, and then go, what actions will you take? What results will you get if you continue to hold that? And it's not a judgment. It's just like, wow, does that belief actually serve you, or does it get in your way of you having what you want?
Okay, I think it's Krishna. Krishna wants a repeat of the list that's below and above the line. So we're going to repeat that because we want it, and I sent it in the chat. But we're going to repeat the list so that you get the full description. I think it's.
And then Rebecca and Doug have a question.
And then Rebecca and Doug will get to your question after we do this.
All right. So typically, the way this is normally used in a little bit different. Like, you're in a relationship and you can tell there's an upset, but people start in what? Denial. Nothing going on here, but you can tell something going on. Then it's like, if I go, well, we're in an upset, but it's not my fault, it's her fault. And then when that doesn't work, I go, well, of course I'm going to justify it. Well, of course I'm being an ass because I'm overwhelmed, and when I get overwhelmed, I become an ass. It's still not my fault. I'm justifying. It's just another way of laying blame. And then when that doesn't work, I feel shame. Like, shame is when there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. I'm bad. And then when I feel shame, what I want to do is I want to quit. I want to quit life. I want to quit the relationship. And I can quit and leave, or I can quit and stay.
And you can see that this is all past base experiences. So all the stuff below the line is actually past based. It's a way for you to kind of get a marker or a flag on whether or not your occurring world is based on past experiences, past wounds, past what you might say are failures or problems.
A large part of this is trying to figure out whose fault it is. That's really productive in a relationship. It really improves your sex life too. You know, honey, it's all your fault. Let's go to the bedroom. And then we get above the line, responsible, able to respond. We move into the future. What do we want to create? Like, okay, that didn't work. Rather than figuring out who to blame, what we're trying to do is figure out what do we want to do in the future to improve it. Like when the microphone stopped working for a second, rather than saying, well, it's her fault it's not working or it's somebody else's fault, we looked and said, what can we do? How can we get you what you want? And it's a very different mindset to be in a relationship with someone who thinks about how can versus, you know, down here and whose fault. And this is where you want to create partnership, love in the future, is up above the line rather than below the line. And you'll look at a lot of people's communication. I'm not going to point fingers too much towards Washington right now, but a lot of the communication I'm getting out of some current government officials seem to be below the line. Now that's me being below the line about being below the line. So I'm claiming my below the line behavior. Okay.
Okay, who is going to go next?
Oh, it's Rebecca and Doug. Raise their hand. Do you still want to say something? Anybody? Rebecca, Doug, do you want to? You're done, or you want to say something?
I'll unmute. Because you had mentioned Marianne in the course, and Paul, you were talking about the beliefs and the arguing about the belief and who's right and wrong. It was channeled in the course later on. It's not a question of whether or not the belief is true or not, but whether it is useful or not.
Yes.
Right.
That's exactly how I've worked with it. It's just a waste of time to sit around arguing whether it's true or not. It's like when I ran a prison program for about 8 years where I go in and work with the inmates. My belief, my global belief, is people are doing the best they can with the tools they have. And if we really want people to do better, we need to give them better tools. Now, is that true with everybody? No, there's some people that are like, they're damaged goods, like really. But you know what? I'm not going to live based on the exceptions. Most of the people I work with in prison, and I work with anywhere from minimum to maximum security, they treated me really well because I treated them really well. I was at cause, not effect. So anyone else? Any other comments, thoughts that you've gotten before we dive into the next thing? Yes, go for it. You've got to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Hi, everybody. Great class. You guys are so adorable.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I love Marianne Williamson too. One of the things I wanted to say was something that's helped me a lot with this belief thing is just like Emily and Scott talk a lot about getting in touch with your feelings in your body. So what I'm noticing, like if I make a statement that all people do this or what, if it doesn't feel good, not only in my feelings, but my body, it's like a good friend of mine once said to me, I don't know anything about enlightenment. I just know what hurts. And if it doesn't feel good, then it's probably not leading me to that other place that you were talking about, that good place with the belief triangle. It's probably not leading me to the good place eventually anyway. So I might want to investigate. If it doesn't feel good, it's probably not going in the right direction.
Yeah, that sounds like a quote I heard Byron Katie say at one point.
Probably. Yeah.
To what Doug and Laura were just talking about, another way of saying it is that if a belief works or not, right? Like right? So, and I hear, when I look at the word integrity, for me, the word integrity is workability, not morality. So, Doug, what you were saying, my first thought was, yeah, if a belief has workability, then I actually utilize it. But if it has no workability, then I actually work to break and interrupt the pattern so I can actually not be run by something that doesn't work for me.
And you look at, I think it was the Dalai Lama asked about religion and what religion was. He said, I'm a religion of inclusion. And I hear that and I go, that belief works for me. Other people have to have beliefs around exclusion to make themselves better than. So let me check my notes. What I want to hear from you is how does your relationship occur to you, or how do relationships in general occur to you? So take a second, write that down. Relationships occur to me as, and just figure out what comes up, not like the well thought out, enlightened way, but how do relationships occur to you? And you want to share one or two of yours, and I'll share one or two of mine. We had a conversation about this in the hammock earlier.
We did.
Yes, how
And
relationships.
interesting what happens to me when I get complete on something, it just kind of like flies out of my brain. That's the experience that I have. Then I have to go, oh, how was I being about that thing that we talked about earlier? Oh, that's right. So you're going to have to help me.
Do you want, is it okay if I?
Oh, totally.
Okay, so part of what occurred for her is in her past marriage that she could either keep the marriage,
No, yeah, go ahead.
keep like peace in the house, or she could have what she wanted, but she couldn't have what she wanted and keep peace in the house.
A really great example is, I don't know if you've noticed from when you've seen my house from the images in the past, but I like color, like this kind of color. Like I bought him this shirt, it's bright, it's got the full spectrum of colors. This room has orange and yellow, and the kitchen has turquoise, and the bathroom has blue. So the point that I'm making is, in my former marriage, I actually thought that I needed to not stand for what I wanted because it wasn't what he wanted. So I had to compromise and actually like do things that he wanted because I wanted him to be happy. So I actually took pieces of me and set it aside. So in my relationship with my former husband, I wasn't whole and complete. I was a piece of myself. And the relationship literally occurred to me like, well, I can't have what I want, so I'm going to have to suffer. And suffer is what I did, which is why I'm no longer in that relationship. But I got responsible for that occurring. And I cleaned that whole mess up with my former husband. And we now have a fantastic relationship, and we raise our 14-year-old daughter in separate homes, but we actually look on the outside as if we're still married because we show love and affection for each other, because I actually became a whole person interacting with him, right? Mm-hmm. And I really got responsible for how I actually was treating him based on my occurring world.
So if you hear what she was saying, is her relationship at some levels, and I'm paraphrasing here, but occurred as compromise. Like I actually got a picture of, and I haven't been in their house. There, you know, he's still there, but I pictured it white walls. And here we are with orange and yellow and a blue and turquoise and, you know, like, and that's who she is. But if she's in a relationship, she's got to go with white walls and not be her exuberant, ebullient self. And I showed up, and in my relationship, I showed up as too much. Like I'm 63 years old. I still have a great sex life and an appetite. And I occurred as too much in my relationships in the past. I'm too much. Or I want too much. And like if I only didn't have my needs, I could have a great relationship. So it's like looking at how do relationships occur to you, and for both of us, they occurred as compromise. And I can't have what I want in them, but I can get some of my needs met, but I'll never get all my needs met. And nobody, like another way that it occurred for me is my needs don't matter. I was good at being the caretaker for other people. But there got to be a point where I got resentful and said, what about me? What about my turn? You know, so relationships occurred as compromise and giving to others, but not having needs be okay. So who'd like to share how relationships occurred to you?
Doug.
Yes.
I'll just help you warm up the room. So what was nice about your question is the first time you asked it, I thought about relationships really broadly, including like coworkers and acquaintances and colleagues and things like that. But then I started drifting back into, okay, what happens in the partner romantic relationship context or with family? And I realized they were a little different. And so I realized that there's an opportunity for my strengths and there's a challenge to my weaknesses. And so I think that I see relationships as opportunities. And I may find that in the intimate relationship, the question of my needs not being met is going to be the place where I get challenged to self-source and self-care and meet my own needs. And there's a whole nother set of things going on in the other relationships. There are opportunities for me to get challenged, self-discovery, find my own judgments and hiccups and things that get in the way and work through them. So it was nice for me to kind of see how the whole set gets sorted out that way between the different ones. But I think the biggest, right away when you asked the question, Paul, there are opportunities for self-discovery, self-challenge, and improvement.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing that in. That's so great.
And one of the ways, yes, let's
Please
or blow my Okay, and I want to hear from a couple more people, but before we do, that brought up a thing that how relationships occur to us and what we teach is there's a difference, and I know Scott and Emily teach the same thing, is there two big models for relationships, and they occur very, very differently. One model is from Disney, and Disney's model is what? Happily ever after. And it's like you go on this tough journey, and the reward for the journey is you meet the princess or the prince, and then it's like game over. We've won the lottery. We have our person. And then what happens when people win the lottery? They quit work. So people are looking for the relationship lottery where when they win the lottery, they get to quit working. And our model is different. It's the hero's journey. And on the hero's journey, there's challenges and there's mentors. Like we have our own coach, and you know we are coaches.
And there's superpowers that you find that you have along the journey, and then you utilize those superpowers for when the kryptonite comes, and you actually or the villain comes out of the darkness, right? Or you're going down the field of terror and you can't tell which direction you're supposed to go, but you have a guide, right? So the hero's journey is what we see is a way to have relationships occur so that there's power and freedom and ways for you to actually get used to your own self-expression.
And if you think about when Luke went into the cave in Star Wars, Yoda sent him into the cave, his mentor, what did he go into the cave with? His own thoughts. That's where Bannister won the 4-minute mile, is in his own thoughts. How do our relationships occur? They occur mostly in our head, and then we make them manifest out here. So who else? Let's hear from somebody that we haven't heard from yet. That just what are you getting from this call? What's becoming available to you? What are you seeing? Yes. I'm pointing right to the center of the screen. Probably makes no difference. But the guys just read, and you guys are way away, so I can't read anybody's name.
And
It's David.
It's David.
David,
Awesome.
Sorry,
Oh,
we're like squinty.
Aquaman. Yeah. No. Yeah, this is such a great topic, you guys, and I'm just so grateful to be part of your class and getting the wisdom that you're imparting onto us. It's so interesting because I live with, you brought up the Dalai Lama, and I live with Lolly Dama, and as Doug brought out, how you hear the question, and it brings you to a specific area. And then you span out, and then it comes right back to me, right? It comes right back to me. And one of the what I thought about relationships were in the past was, yes, I have needs met, and I can identify with the compromise comment that you made in past relationships, and thinking, well, is this as good as it gets, right? Only getting some of them met. And then, I get into the me, my, I'm selfish kind of thing, thought process. But at the end of the day, the relationship that's most important to me is with me. And as long as I can be kind and understanding to myself, and I can let myself off the hook when I screw up, because I don't know about you, but I've screwed up before. And, I know that I have a lighter feeling, right? It just feels lighter to give myself that reassurance of, hey, you know what? You showed up, you did, as long as I can do better today than I did yesterday, or at least have that as an intention, then my relationship with myself is going to ooze out into everybody I encounter that day, or my beloved. So as long as I can love me, then I have love for other people. If I can't love me, if I don't even like myself, then it's going to pour out, spill over into every relationship I have.
Yes.
And so, yes, that's the most important relationship to me, is with me. And that's what I'm getting from this.
That's great. And you just gave me, thank you so much for sharing. Let's blow them a kiss. And everybody that's spoken, let's give everybody a kiss. Matt up there in the corner, and Doug. And okay, one thing I got. How many of you are parents here? Any of you parents have kids? That's what parent is. All right. So what creates a secure kid is when the parents have a solid relationship. And what makes it insecure for a kid is when the relationship's unstable. So what's interesting is sometimes the kids don't like it when the parents are in agreement. Like, she said no for the ice cream. Kid goes over to him and goes, how about the ice cream? Said, what did mom say? No? Well, then it's what? No. There's an agreement. Because that relationship is solid, the kids can trust and relax. The interesting thing is there's a relationship between the masculine and the feminine. And the more that the masculine is solid in ourself, in our relationship with ourself, we may piss off the feminine periodically, but the more attractive we actually are to the feminine, because they get to relax and know that we're on purpose and we're solid and we're grounded. Does that make sense? And there's a dance because it's that polarity between the divine feminine and the divine masculine that creates passion. And when there's no polarity, there's no passion. You can be really good friends, but your love life disappears. Who else wants to share something before I ask the next question? Somebody we haven't heard from yet down there? Yes. Come on. Let's see. I don't even know how to. Who is that down there? There's Linda and Heidi, and so who? And see, I'm half blind, and Leah. So, what are you guys getting? Come on, this is relationship we're building here. We got to share back and forth. So unmute yourself.
All right, I'll add something.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, well, I must confess that I just hopped on the call 5 minutes ago because I just saw the email in my inbox and I thought, oh, great. Let me catch what I can. And gentleman in the plaid shirt, you are very familiar to me. So I know we've crossed paths somewhere along the way.
And I'm Sequoia. And we're talking about how relationships occur to us. The term occurring is a distinction, not a definition, right? So the distinction is a relationship. This person actually occurs to me as a lover, an amazing human being that contributes to others. He actually occurs to me as somebody who's got a commitment, that's going to, a commitment to work things out with me no matter what occur.
I also occur as a
Like-
pain in the ass at times,
Yes.
and obstinate and stubborn. I don't know why.
Okay. So it's kind of like how that person shows up for you in your world.
Yes.
And I can have an idea of how relationships occur to me, and then it's like this person ends up, I try to fit her into how relationships occur.
Yeah. Well, what struck me when you were just talking about the masculine and the feminine, and this sort of paradox of love to hate, because the person that we have the most tension with, the most polarity between masculine and feminine, is the person we're most attracted to. And so the thing that I'm really wanting to step into more is just coming to enjoy that tension between opposites in all areas of life, not only between the masculine and the feminine, but that's sort of the foundation which this whole construct is based upon. So it's futile to try to fight these two opposites, whether they be being in the spiritual world or the physical world, the financial world and the spiritual world, the masculine and the feminine, the need for certainty versus uncertainty. There's this place of just being comfortable with the tension between opposites, learning to be comfortable with that tension. And for me, that's where I want to head more. And I think that's really helpful in relationship. If you can just come to terms with the fact that as a woman, if I'm in my feminine, his masculine obsession with purpose and his single-minded focus on his computer where he doesn't even see me when I walk into the room, if I can appreciate that's his polarity and the tension of feeling ignored, if I know where it's coming from and I can even adore that quality in him, then I can start to feel this comfort within the tension. And that's feeling really important to me these days.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, and welcome.
And let's lower just.
Mwah, Heidi.
And Heidi, I'm going to say this, but there's a certain way you move, and your halo, your hair is lit. I go, this is his sister. You look like you got like this halo around you or something. Okay.
So to follow up on what Heidi is saying, I think that right now, we're in a correction, right? We're in a correction of how the male and the female, or the masculine and the feminine, show up. And that's actually going on in a really big way right now because of all the political stuff going on. At the beginning of the year, there was all these women's marches. And so Marianne Williamson, when we saw her on Saturday, she spoke a lot about the masculine and the feminine. And she was saying that we all have masculine and feminine in us, right? We all know that. But I was born into a feminine body, and he was born into a masculine body. So what actually is going on is when I'm actually coming from the feminine, I have more of my innate wholeness, right? When he's coming from the masculine, he's got his innate wholeness. But I can have masculine energy. But if I have masculine energy, his masculine energy gets canceled out. So what she was saying is that polarity that you were talking about, Heidi, if I'm showing up masculine, he can actually go feminine or leave. and this is something I've talked about before with our clients, and also I think on some of the love mastery coaching. I used to be a female standing in masculine energy because I was raised that way by my father, who taught me how to work on cars and build fences and everything like that. And so my experience was of relationships is that men will come, but they will not stay. It wasn't until I got how I occurred to men, as there was no space for the masculine to be, that I actually called in masculine men to stay, and we had time enough to see whether or not we would want to be in a relationship, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this up is the way relationships occur, or the way males occur to us or females occur to us, also has a lot to do with our upbringing, right? So again, the occurring world is from the past world. So what I'm trying to create is our first occurrings start when we're really little. And so I think that we're in a transition now where we're starting to realize that we need to shift the occurring of men for us women, and men as well. And we need to shift the occurring of women for men, which is a very interesting way of taking the concept that we're bringing to everybody tonight. So thank you, Heidi, for bringing that up.
And it's not limited. She is the chairman, chairman of the board of this organization. So she can show up as powerful, dynamic leader, get shit done, and then come home and drop into her feminine, and I can have a bath waiting for her, and she can drop right into that. So it's not like an either or, it's having more versatility.
And understanding how to utilize, the occurring world. Like, okay, I'm now going to need, when I'm speaking to the mayor of the city, I'm going to need to stand in some masculine energy to get certain things across. But when I'm standing with my lover, I am not interested in standing in a masculine energy or having the occurring that I'm standing in masculine energy.
Cool.
Who else?
And then I want to give you some, before we wrap up, I want to give you some next steps. So
we do go till 8:30, right?
We go to 8.
We go through till 8:30?
I thought 8.
Oh, 8. 8. Okay, sorry. We made that mistake before.
Yeah, we like to talk. So next steps. Number 1 is to write down, how does relationships and how does this relationship occur to you? And what I want you to do is be able to talk about, like we had tough conversations today because some things didn't occur as perfect. And it's important because if you don't talk about those things, they act as if they're true anyway. So they're like in the water, but they're never spoken. We act as if it's true. So it's creating a sacred space to be able to reveal how things are occurring. I'm occurring that my needs don't matter, or I never count, or I can't say what I want to say, and then I behave as if it's true. So we need to get that out in the open. That's kind of like what needs to happen first, because if that's not cleared out of the way, that creates your default future. And as much as you write down this flowery future by design, unless you change the direction by getting the shit out of the way, you're going to go to your default future no matter how much you want the relationship by design.
Good. And I wanted to say, Lusana, she mentioned, she said, how can we change our fearful, painful beliefs to more workable beliefs so that relationships occur to us with more workable, more positive outcomes? That's a very good question.
So how do you change any belief? Number 1, you have to know what a belief is. What a belief is a feeling of certainty about something. So like I have right here, I have a music stand. And what makes the stand stable is it's got these 3 legs that balance it. So if I push it in a direction, it stays solid. Our beliefs, the more references we have, the more legs we have under it, the more that we believe it, the more solid it is. if a woman was molested as a child and then raped and then, all of they have a series of references that make their beliefs very what? Solid, because men have had such abusive experiences with them. So what do we have to do? We have to find other references that are different. First, we become aware what the belief is. Men are, women are, relationships are. And then what we have to look at is what's the pain or the price we pay for having those beliefs. Like if I want a great relationship with her, but I believe that women are going to leave me, then I don't open up and I'm not vulnerable. So the price I pay is I'm only half in. I'm not fully available to her. And there's days that I'm not fully available. I'm focused and she's not happy with me. So number one, we become aware. Number two, we look at the price we're paying for it. Number three, we decide, do we want to change? Is it worth changing? And then number four is we actively, and you can look at for how to change a belief. Tony Robbins is a master at that. I used to work for Tony. He's a master at helping people change their belief. And part of that is you start looking for new references. You look for how the current belief is actually getting in the way of you having a good life. You start looking at the opposite of that. Men can't be trusted. There's a belief. Then you look at all the men in your life that you do trust, that can be trusted, that are good. And you start creating references for all of the different places that are the opposite of the old belief. So as you clear out the old one, you put in a new one that supports you.
The other way, Lusana and everyone, to think about her question and what Paula is saying is you bring responsibility into the your conversation with yourself about this belief. Get responsible for, oh, I have a belief that is X, Y, or Z. When we get responsible for something, it brings it out of our blind spot and brings it to the forefront so that we can look at it and then start seeing the patterns in our life. Oh, I have a belief that I can't have what I want. And so I am going to give my power away to my partner and he's going to choose white walls, whereas I really want turquoise walls. So Lusana, is that kind of giving you an idea as well from what Paul is saying and what I'm saying?
And I'll give you one last example, then we want to hear from some people. But when we got together, I said, I want to meet your needs. And you had an old belief.
I actually had an old belief that was, oh, I'm needless. I actually am like, the new kind of woman who actually is low maintenance and I don't have any needs to take care of them all myself and anything you give me is extra.
And so her needs, her belief basically at some level was, my needs don't matter to other people. I got to take care of them myself. And that shifted.
Oh, yeah.
There's days I want the old belief back.
Time now. And he's going, wait. Whoa, Nelly.
So it's like a dance to make it visible and have these conversations with your partner about your beliefs and your needs. And, we go through your core wounds and all these different areas.
And just to kind of wrap up this idea, it doesn't mean that it makes your life work automatically just because you start seeing how things occur to you. It actually gives you the power, though. It takes the power out of living a default life or default relationship, and it actually is the first step. It's just the first step. So it's the first step in designing the relationship that you want, because it puts responsibility in your hands, responsibility for how you are putting yourself out in the world and how you're reacting to others. In another class, hopefully, Scott and Emily will let us do the other parts because there's a lot of more juicy elements to this whole thing. And we cannot recommend highly or high enough this book, The 3 Laws of Performance. It's a fantastic book, and you can get it on Audible.
Yeah,
it's a really easy read or listen to.
I love it on Audible. I've listened to it. Like I love mountain biking, and so I mountain bike with Audible, and I've gone through the book several times. I've never read the book once, but I've listened to it 2 or 3 times and gotten the benefits of it.
So to wrap things up, do we want to hear from a couple?
Yeah, let's hear from a couple of people. What did you get from tonight?
Yes, let's see. It looks like Leah. Is it Leah or Leah? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's both, but I'm going with Leia right now.
Hi, Leia.
So what I really get from all these coachings is the huge difference between a conscious, responsible relationship and a relationship that's not yet at that place of consciousness, willingness, awareness. And, I'm kind of on the cusp of where I've had a few conscious relationships, and then I've had a bunch that aren't as conscious. And I guess I want to move into the belief that, that all relationships that I'm going to have from now on are going to be conscious and responsible.
Well, just so you know, our niche, by the way, is conscious couples caught in crisis or conflict or stuck in a rut. So just because you're conscious doesn't mean that it works out, because relationship, part of the whole thing of being in relationship mastery and studying with Scott and Emily is to give you new tools to take you to a different level, because you can be conscious in one area and very unconscious in another.
Yeah.
So there is no like perfect stamp. Like, oh, I find she's bam.
Yeah.
And it's actually really beautiful what you're saying, Leah. We find that conscious people who have spent a lot of time getting into a conscious lifestyle get really frustrated because they feel like, wait, I actually have spent all this time getting conscious. Why am I still having challenges? And we're here to tell you that we still have challenges, and that's the point of this lifetime. I think Marianne Williamson was saying, like, if you're not depressed by the shit that's going on right now, you're not paying attention, right? We're here to actually experience the extremes of life. We're not here to be flatline, because flatline means that you're actually dead. We're actually here to experience the polarity, like Heidi was saying, right? The difference. Oh my God. I seriously have a whole pile of books, right? Because I never know when I'm going to pull out a quote. But the polarity of joy in sorrow. One of my favorite books, The Prophet, and the chapter on joy and sorrow, right? The difference between being really happy and really sorrowful. Well, guess what? They're 2 sides to the same coin. And if you say to yourself, oh, God damn it, I just hate my sorrow and my sadness. Well, you're actually saying that you also don't like your joy, because the depth of your sorrow is an indication of how deep you can go into joy. So we're not here to be flatline. We're here to experience the differences and to be like a willow tree and go with the flow of it. Thanks for your comment.
Yeah,
one last one to wrap us up. Anybody that's got a burning share before we say good night? Hit your mute button, speak to us, or forever hold your peace. Thank you so much, everybody.
So this has been so fantastic, and we actually love doing breakthrough relationships sessions with people. So if anybody's interested, do you want to put in the information there, or
no?
Okay, great.
They can get a hold of us.
Yeah, you guys know how to get a hold of us, and we would love to show you what your ROS or relationship operating system is all about.
And thank you. I want to say, even though Scott and Emily weren't on this call, let's blow them a kiss.
Thanks for letting us be on the call, Scott and
And
Emily.
thank you all for showing up tonight. I'm always honored to be here, because I definitely started, my relationships many years ago occurred. I did not start out to be a relationship coach. Let me put it that way. That's it for tonight, though. All right. Good night. Have fun.
Blessings, light, and love to you all.